Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Waziri and other ministers, distinguished guests. Everyone here would be used to seeing me in the guise of Managing Director of Base Resources, and in fact, when I was here last year, I was talking about the combination of Base with Energy Fuels from the US. I think, if I remember, we're about a month out from that transaction completing. And I can safely say we're now a year into that journey, and we've made some particularly strong steps forward in what is a pretty ambitious strategic plan for Energy Fuels to build a US-centric, significant scale critical minerals business. Within that, I took on the role of Executive Vice President of Mineral Sand Operations. It says Base Resources, but for the whole Energy Fuels group. That'll make a bit more sense in a moment. This really captures what we saw as the rationale for the combination and why it was such a compelling story for us as Base to kind of bring our shareholders into. If you look at the blue section there, that's the Energy Fuels legacy business, for want of a better word. They're the largest historical producer of uranium in the US. They continue to be the biggest producer of uranium in the US. They've got a quite sophisticated mill in White Mesa in Utah that over a long period of time, 40 odd years, has become somewhat expert at processing all manner of different uranium-bearing ores to produce a range of products, uranium, vanadium, and working on the opportunity to produce some very high-tech medical isotopes. That mill was relatively easy to repurpose as a rare earth operation. And in fact, we've done it. With the spending of about $16 million a year or so ago, we've been able to turn that into a facility that can process about 10,000 tonnes of monazite a year, produce 1,000 tonnes of NdPr. The purpose of that was really, one, to get into production to some degree, to be able to demonstrate that we can do it. Two, was prove that the flow sheet and the solution chemistry expertise that the company had could take an easy sidestep into rare earth operations, and that we could do it at an existing facility that's fully permitted and has a huge land area around it that would enable expansion. That then brought Base in. We had acquired the Toliara project back in 2018. It's a mineral sand operation. That's what we bought it for. Ilmenite, rutile and zircon. We knew it had monazite in it, but at the time that was a problem to be solved rather than an opportunity to be grabbed. As time marched on, we realised just how valuable that additional, otherwise waste stream out of our mineral sand processing would actually be. And so for us to become a monazite producer to feed White Mesa was simply one step sideways from what we already do. And once you start to combine that, you're talking about a business that's getting into what can be a really challenging sector to get into, from a technological point of view, from a supply source point of view, into something that we were really not entirely doing for the first time. There are a lot of mineral sand operations out there, or deposits, that have a similar profile that can produce monazite. So bringing the Base team in made a heap of sense in terms of getting our foot as a collective organisation, as our CEO likes to say, on the molecules that are needed to feed the whole machine. So once you put this together, you've got a low-risk way of getting into this, and we do produce quite a wide range of critical minerals, and looking to expand that even further. So that's, in a nutshell, the strategic rationale. Got quite a diverse asset portfolio. All of the uranium operations are centred in the sort of four corners area of the US, with the mill in Utah, got mines in Arizona, mines in Wyoming. or operations in Wyoming, and a number of other uranium assets that are either on standby or at various stages of development as the supply need moves forward. All the red stuff is what the base organisation that everyone here, or most people here, are familiar with, is looking after as part of this portfolio. So we've obviously got Toliara that we're looking to develop and have been pushing forward with for quite some time. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But we also have a 49% joint venture interest in or we're earning a 49% JV interest in the Donald project in Victoria. It's a similar sort of deposit, titanium and zircon based, but with a reasonable quantity of monazite. And we also have an exploration project in Brazil that we're looking to progress. It's smaller scale than the other two, but an interesting opportunity. Beyond that, we're continuing to look for further opportunities to roll out this model with a combined titanium or classic mineral sands and rare earth strategy. The objective for us is not to stop at rare earth oxides. That's where the current concept with the mill at White Mesa would take us. But the whole strategy is to build a US-centric supply chain all the way down to the original equipment manufacturers in the car industry, which means completing the next couple of steps in the chain, one way or another, in the production of metals and alloys and then ultimately magnets. So there's quite a bit of work going on at the moment, working on how we take those next couple of steps and what they look like. There's going to be a lot going on in that space over the next couple of years. To give you some idea of the way our potential is perceived, last year we were able to recruit Deb Benetham, who previously headed up kind of critical mineral procurement for General Motors and had been working on how they were going to draw through the opportunity to or the supply for rare earths, to her coming to join us to work out how we actually push down towards the car companies, because she thinks that's a more compelling and more controlled strategy. So quite an interesting opportunity and recognition of what we're doing. So we've got a lot of work to do. We've got the bits. Now we need to pull it all together and execute. Toliara, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but we're running towards a final investment decision on that in the first half of next year. On that basis, we can have it in production by sort of late 2028. The Donald project in Victoria, probably heading towards an FID at the end of this year. That can be in production a bit earlier. It's not going all the way down the separation route for mineral sands. It's going to be exporting a concentrate, so a bit simpler. And Bahia is on its own time frame. It again would not be a complex operation. We would probably stop at concentration for that and ship the concentrate up to one of a couple of existing facilities on the Gulf Coast in the US. We currently have supply coming in for when we want to run rare earths at White Mesa from Chemours in the US. It's not large volumes, but it's enough for us to be able to continue to do the sort of test work and proof of concept work that we're doing. And then the other piece is that obviously, as I said before, we've been able to demonstrate that the White Mesa mill can be repurposed or campaigned as a rare earth operation, but we can't run uranium and rare earths at the same time. So we're running down the track on a project to develop effectively a duplication of the current White Mesa facility to bring that online to be ready to receive the large volumes of monazite that are going to come out of particularly Toliara. It's going to be up around 26,000 tonnes a year. The objective is probably to get to somewhere around 50 to 60,000 tonnes a year of monazite consumption, which would be somewhere north of 6,000 tonnes of NdPr a year and probably over 300 tonnes of terbium dysprosium. So quite a significant producer. This basic strategy is getting quite a lot of interest from the US government, as a couple of other speakers have spoken about, with DoD funding coming for Mountain Pass to do some similar things. There is a huge amount of focus on this, and the demand that they're seeing means that there's room for a number of players in this space. We are going to be continuing to be a very significant uranium producer, heading towards producing somewhere between 2 and 5 million pounds a year, depending on demand. But yeah, significant producer in the context of current US consumption. So looking at the assets that Base has brought along with it, rather sadly, the Kwale journey has come to an end. I've been speaking about this project since we acquired it in 2010, and I came and spoke to my very first one of these 15 years ago. And in that time, we completed the studies, we built it, we optimised it, we ran it extremely successfully, and now we're in the final stages of rehabilitation and closure. We ceased operations at the end of December last year. We laid the final sort of permanent workforce off at the end of June. It was a ramp down over a 6-month period. We're getting towards the end of all of the rehabilitation of the physical land. 2 dunes are completely profiled and planted, and now it's a question of nature taking its course. The central dune will be completed by the end of this year. And then there's a longer process to, dewater the very large tailing storage facility we have, get the level down, and then hand that back over to the government. But so we'll continue to be involved in Kenya for probably the next 10 years, but obviously in a very, very different form. The focus for us has been on closing this out in exactly the same style in which we started it. Looking to cement a reputation for excellence in the full life cycle of mining. So we've approached this with the same disciplines as we would the construction of a project. It's been an entire of organisation exercise, and I'm very proud of the way that it's coming together. And with the experience in Kwale, we've established a proven track record in Kenya, which is now inherited by the Energy Fuels Group. I occasionally have to remind them that this is actually them now, because we're all part of the same group. But it's also established a really strong reference point for anyone who's looking to come and invest in Kenya in terms of what can be achieved, building on what Waziri was saying before. One of the concerns a lot of people have going into foreign jurisdictions, if you're doing it for the first time, is how do you manage differential safety standards? We went in taking the view that we wouldn't accept any standard other than a best practice Australian standard. And over 47 odd million working hours on this site, we had 2 lost time injuries for the entirety of the project. You've got to bear in mind that we had 1,200 people on site in a country which at the time had no history of large-scale mining. So we had to train everybody in the way we needed to operate. Incredibly effective outcomes can be achieved. In terms of supply chains, some people are daunted by the idea that you've got to have so much local content. We sourced 75% of everything that we needed for a mining operation that otherwise had never existed in Kenya from Kenyan suppliers. Over time, we were able to develop the supply chains and expand on that. There is an incredibly sophisticated manufacturing base in Kenya on which to draw, both in Nairobi and in Mombasa. We put a huge effort into training, just short of 1 million hours of training time put into our workforce. So if you do the maths on the 1,200 people I was talking about before, that's the best part of 1,000 hours for every single employee on the site. So it's a huge lift. We graduated 100 apprentices, and we also graduated 26 Malagasy apprentices that we brought over just as COVID started, and they got trapped in Kenya for a number of years and ended up leaving as fully fledged apprentices. We achieved a 99% Kenyan workforce By the end, we had about 11 expatriates. We could have reduced that even further, but we were heading towards the closure, and then that required a completely different set of expertise. So we didn't end up pushing below that. But 75% of the workforce came from Kwale County, which again has no real industrial activity. We invested about $37 million in community development programs immediately focused around our sphere of influence over the course of about 14 years. It's a very significant influence. One of the challenges for us was not leaving an environment that was unsustainable when we left. Part of our mantra was, if we leave simply a memory of how good it used to be, we've failed. Importantly for Waziri, we paid over $400 million in government revenue from a project that in theory shouldn't have been developed. It did require some support back in the day from government in terms of concessions and support, but ended up being an extremely effective project and shows what can be done when you collaborate with a government to get a project off the ground. Which brings us to Toliara, where the plan is to very much roll out exactly the same philosophy that underpinned the Kwale operation. The biggest difference with Toliara is its mine life. Kwale we knew was always going to be a short mine life. Toliara is going to be 100 years by the time it's all done and dusted. The other difference is that Madagascar has a reasonable history of large-scale mining. With two very large mines, QMM, Rio Tinto's mineral sand operation on the southeast coast, and the giant Ambatavi $9 billion nickel cobalt development. So, history of mining. Quite similar to Kwale in many ways. It's very flat-lying, right at surface. There's literally no overburden, no stripping. It's just straight into the ore. We'll be mining using the dozer trap mining method that we started Kwale with. That's actually Kwale in operation. Kwale had quite a high slime content in the sand that meant that we were able to move to an even more efficient mining method of hydro mining. We can't do that at Toliara because the slime content's too low, so we're going back to dozer trap mining, which is just fine. Very similar processing at Toliara. We'll be starting with one concentrator to begin with, and then in about operating year 4, we'll be developing a second one. We're starting in a higher grade zone, and then moving to sort of the more general grade profile, if you like, for the whole deposit. You would have caught a glimpse then of a solar plant. We have a very clear plan as to how we will get this thing to all but zero emissions by 2040. We have a rather pesky 7 or 10 days of cloud cover a year when solar won't be able to get there. We're going to have to cover that in some way, but beyond that, based on the way we're projecting battery technology development and dryer technology development and heavy mobile equipment development, particularly large bulldozers, there's no reason why we can't achieve it. And it makes outstanding economic sense to do so. Toliara will also be a residential, fly in, fly out site, not like Kenya where we had the benefit of the Diani Beach resort area just down the road. We don't really have that. There's not a great deal of sophistication in the Toliara region, even though it has quite a large population. There's the best part of 250,000 people there. It's pretty unsophisticated. Logistics chain is similar in distance to Kwale. It's sort of ballpark 50 kilometres from mine to port. The difference is we have to build everything. We didn't in Kenya. We had the benefit of obviously the Mombasa port. We had to build our own facility on it, but nothing of the scale that we have to build here. We also have to build a dedicated road to get down there. This port facility, for those of you who are familiar with Kwale, is more than 1.5 times the size. It's quite big. That's a bit of an old rendering of it. With the monazite export, there's a reasonably large container handling yard off to the side, and the containers will be going off the same wharf, so that will become a bit wider. But that's Toliara in a nutshell. It's a little bit different now. We probably need to update this video, but you get the idea. Toliara, as I said before, was originally a mineral sand operation. It's quite significant scale. It's about 1.3 million tonnes of ilmenite, rutile and zircon. Obviously the bulk of the volume is ilmenite. But the monazite is also an extremely significant component. We'll be able to produce up to around 26,000 tonnes of monazite a year, effectively for free. It runs through the same flow sheet. It comes out as a stream out of the mineral separation plant, and then we concentrate it again. We've started with a subset of our resource. So we've got a 2.6 billion tonne resource at pretty healthy grades. We started with 900 million tonnes. That's enough for a 38-year mine life. We've also done a whole lot of additional drilling, which will expand that resource base as we continue to incorporate that. So it doesn't take too much to understand that this is going to have enormous potential for future expansion, and people should expect to see this getting bigger and longer. The other thing that everyone here would be familiar with is me standing up for about the last 6 years saying that we're getting extremely close to having fiscal terms agreed with the government. We finally got there in late last year. So we agreed fiscal terms, we had the suspension lifted, and now the project is on the road towards an FID in around April, May of next year. A lot of work underway at the moment. We've been developing our operations team. Part of our model is to have them on board very early so that we have a nice seamless handover of the project. They're involved in the design, they're involved in the execution. So we've got that team up and running now. We brought a number of people across from Kwale, so there's a lot of the DNA of Base incorporated in that. It's quite a big project to build. Actually, I should say you'll notice here I haven't put any economics up there. We're in the process of finalising a final definitive feasibility study, if you like, the pre-construction version, under NI 43-101 for energy fuels. That'll be coming out in a couple of weeks' time. You'll be able to see the economics of it then. Ours is all done under JORC, and as an American company now, we sort of need to keep that to one side. Extremely robust economics though. Big lift on the financing. It's going to take the best part of $1 billion, but fortunately the economics support it. It's pretty robust. So on the basis of all of that, we should see ourselves in production towards the end of 2028. And yeah, it's been a long time coming. So that's the energy fuel story. I said before, this is my 15th time speaking on Base and all things Base and where we're going. This will also be the last time I'm speaking on Base and all things Base. The time has come with the integration of energy fuels and Base for me to step out and let the organisation move on without me. So come the end of this year, I will, for the first time in 17 years, I will no longer be running around with a Base business card. So thanks everyone for following the journey over a long period of time. We've always felt really supported by and I guess recognised and valued by the mining industry. And I'd like to thank Waziri for the support we've had over a long period of time in Kenya. We haven't always agreed, but we've always worked out how to come up with an answer that's mutually beneficial. So thanks everyone.